Hi everyone, welcome to this video dedicated to the setting, the world of Bunker 101. Our story starts in 1959 when the war starts and Thomas Duncan had the idea of create this bunker for everyone. He managed to realize that alongside with Schneider, which was another one that was very able to create that technically and also was very expert in social systems. So he created the Schneider scale we still use. We will do a video on that. We enter in 1959 underground. We started the bunker. Some weeks later, Thomas Duncan unfortunately died, and a bit later also Schneider died. But we call this period 1959-2031 the golden age, because for more than 70 years Bunker 101 lives in a state of balance. Society consolidates into blocks, the first reboots are carried out successfully, and the family prosper. 1932 is called the Day of the Light. The first warning of the main reactor collapsing is triggered, so we have problem with their main reactor, and we need to work on that. And the government try to find volunteers among the core operator workers, and all these words and jargon will be clear is in the game guide, and you will be more familiar with that. Also, these stories you don't have to remember by this video, but you will have more time to digest and having more or less a grasp of the past and present of the Bunker 101. So the government found a bit of volunteer, they call them the steel moles, so people who accept that, but there were also core op that denied, so they were called the worms, because they refute for fear, survival instinct, love for their families, different reason. But the fact is that those categories still exist nowadays. The rust is still there. Also the synergy, the government found that there were not enough steel molds, so they put into the group also some citizens that were red on the Schneider scale, because they were deemed like more expendable. So many of them died during the mission. They accomplished the mission, the system is saved, but we pay an high price. And also the people who paid the higher price were the kids at the time that were close to the neighborhood where this thing happened, and we call them children of the light, and still nowadays they suffer from severe chronic illness because of this day. In 2033, the reboot procedure failed, so there were the people that were carrying on the reboot, driven maybe by some morbid curiosity, some of them interrupt the procedure to observe the reactor core as it approached to the breaking point, driven by a thirst for knowledge at every cost. They finally tried to complete the reboot, but it was too late. They all died, but part of this area is now called Area 1K and has been struck by radiation and space-time collapse. So nowadays it's no longer possible to live here as was back in the day because of the failed reboot procedure. 2034, the expulsion of 7 secta. Back in the days, originally there were 7 blocks, not 6 as it is nowadays. According to some, 7 secta, the 7th block, was made by former prison fleeing a nearby jail. According to others, it had direct ties to Duncan. No one knew the truth, but they were the last in the social scale. So when an anomaly occurred, and when the bunker had experienced famine, the block was held responsible for that, and the decision was to erase them, which means that they were offered to go outside, go into the exile, which means go into the contaminated area and basically die. Most of them accepted because they want their kids, their children, their son and daughters to survive, so they choose death, and the younger from the 7 sector block were assigned to other families. So now we don't talk that much in the bunker about these sad stories, but according to some, the survivors that are now integrated as adults in the new family still preserve memories, a secret pride of the 7 sector block. 2038, the sector 32 situation happened because over the year the cult of Thomas Duncan arose as a spontaneous religion. For years its followers gathered in sector 32, a peripheral area of the bunker. They prayed and they built a doctrine in which Duncan was the prophet who saved humanity. So over the time the number of citizens who identified Duncan as the prophet grew, so there were more and more Duncanists. In 2030, during a ceremony, they were discovered. The panic in the general chaos that result from being discovered create some sort of problem for no one knows why, but the sector's ventilation system went into isolation and released contaminated particles. So more than 15 citizens died in this situation, and according to that, the government understand that was no longer smart to keep the Duncanism outlaw, so Duncanism became the official religion in the bunker, and the people who died that night are now called the martyrs of the Sector 32. In 2041, there was the Rhino coup. The Rhino party arose spontaneously, and its leader from the Una One Omega family, called Ultman, was willing to repair the bunker because the bunker was sick. So the party popularity grew rapidly, and they winning the election. But the other election, the follower election, was won by the Donkeys, another party, and the Rhino refused to hand over to them. They still want to be in power. And they barricaded themselves inside the Synergy, the government headquarters, and claiming they were still in command. But the citizens didn't agree with that, so they carry on the everyday duties, ignoring basically the government, and when they felt alone, they just surrendered. The Donkey, the new governor, pardoned them to keep social peace. They only punish Ultraman Una One Omega, that was the leader of the party. He was exiled. So went outside the bunker and dead. Since then, the Rhino party is forbidden. 2049, Pavese strike. So Pavese Penta 5 Alpha was a member of the Mastiffs party, and he led the only strike in the history of Bunker 101. So a series of incidents in the vault made life of workers very hard. So the government kind of ignored the situation, but eventually was forced to make concessions, which the workers accepted. So the strike was over. But for Pavese and his follower, some of the core follower, this was not enough. So they barricaded themselves in the Mindframe Marilyn control room and refused to go out. So the Synergy then established the Sentinels, a group of loyal citizens. No one knows what happened that night, but the following morning, Pavese and all the other strikers were found dead. 2055, the theft of the Genesis capsule. The Genesis capsule are one of the bunker's most precious resources because they are incubators for the growth of new citizens, the babies in the bunker. So their management of the capsule is regulated with extreme care by the licensing commission because not everyone can have it because we have limited resources. One day, one of the capsule disappeared. Quadra 4 Alpha were accused. They didn't defend themselves convincingly or not enough. So they were found guilty, they didn't complain, and they were suspended by any license until 3 days before the beginning of the Larp. In 2056, the sacrifice of Becquerel Bissot Alpha. Becquerel was a fervent and devout Duncanist, and but he was act strangely in the last month. The other protagonist of this story is Etty ESA6 Omega, that was considered a fine, nice girl, and maybe a little naive, but we don't know exactly what happened in the incident. But Etty, this girl, wandered off alone toward the area 1K, the contaminated area. So Becquerel was the first one to go to try to rescue her, even before the official help. He managed to find her, but they went the wrong path on their way back, so they were found dead into the contaminated area. So Becquerel, for someone in the bunker, is an hero. Also in 2057 happened what is called the tragedy of bounce court. Bounce is the sport of the official sport in the Bunker 101. We will give you more information in a dedicated video. But let's say a little over 1 year ago, before the starting of the Larp, some members of the Una 1 Omega family and Quadro 4 Omega arranged a meet for a game of bounce. When member of the families, their parents that were searching for the youngster in this family, found them, two of them, one from the Omega family and the other one from the Quadro 4 family, were dead, while the other youths were in shock. So, accordingly to the official reconstruction during the game, those two young men were showed each other violently and crashed into metal debris in the South Gallery. But some have never believed that story, and the mystery remains. For some people, there are even monsters of strange things happen. We don't know. But since then, the members of these two families try to avoid the South Gallery at night. Now we come to the more recent fact. Everything happened in 2058, so 1 year before the starting of the Larp. The first of this event is the disappearance of Ulma Una 1 Alpha. This person was considered one of the most promising members of the family. And for about a year, the mood of Ulma were appear more and more gloomy or distant. Then suddenly, Ulma disappeared. Search were organized, but no results comes back. So to this day, Ulma is still missing, and the family is still in great sorrow. Same year, the incident 2058, the incident that happened during the reinforcement of Conduit 4B. So there were a problem in this corridor, and there were a repair project that were assigned to the Terra 3 Alpha family. They did the project, and the ESA 6 Alpha family insisted to be them, the people who put this project into practice. Problem is that during the work, another accident occur, and two persons of the ESA 6 Alpha family died. They claim it's their own fault, it's not the fault of the project, but still in those days, the Terra 3 Alpha family appear particularly tense about the topic. 2058 again, Petrich Penta 5 Alpha died on the workplace. So he was a vault maintenance worker, and he had a sudden collapse during the work shift and died. The last recent medical tests and psychological evaluation were both very positive, so there were no sign of stress or other stuff. The episode was archived as an incident on the work shift, but nobody knows what really happened. This is everything we saw so far. The last event in the same year is the suicidal of Pascal Penta 5 Omega. He was a cheerful and very attractive young man, but in the last moment he was act strangely and more irritable and more violent. And after several weeks of instability, Pascal was found dead in his quarter. Internal investigation established that beyond any doubt it was suicide. So the family, the Penta 5 Omega family, has always remained extremely reserved, and so we don't have any other official explanation. So thank you very much. Once again, I remember you that all the facts are in written form for the people who prefer, and that was pretty much everything for this video about the setting. See you next time with more videos, and can't wait to play with you all together in the Bunker 101.